Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Stitch Sessions, and welcome back to another stitch tutorial. So in today's tutorial, we are going to be working on this beautiful lacy X's and O's stitch. This stitch is actually commonly called the crossed stitch, but I have seen it called the X's and O's, which I think is kind of sweet. And it's very airy and lacy looking. And you can use this in a variety of different ways. Some people really like to use this in shawls if they're using finer weight yarn, or maybe even in blankets that you use bulky yarn with. This stitch actually would look up very, very nice. So it is the same on the front as it is on the back. We are going to be working on this tutorial in a flat project or a flat swatch. Of course, you can also use this in working in the round, like if you're doing a cowl or something like that. And I will do a tutorial on that stitch in the round coming in the future. For now, we're just going to focus on doing the X's and O's stitch in a flat project. So let's get to it. Okay, so for this project, I'm just using some leftover cotton yarn that I have here. This is the Bernat Handicrafter cotton. It's a medium weight size 4. So I would say this is kind of the average weight yarn that most people would use if they're doing a scarf or something like that. And for the hook, I am going to be using a 5.5 millimeter hook, which is also known as an I or a size 9. And as always, for any of your crochet projects, you want to make sure that you always have a pair of scissors on hand and a trusty darning needle to sew in any ends. Okay, so to begin our stitch, what we're going to do is we're going to place a slip knot on our hook. And this stitch is done up in multiples of 3. So if you want to work your project lengthwise, we'll call it. So whatever the width you want your project to be, do it in multiples of 3. Just remember that one of those 3 stitches is going to count to give us a bit of a turning chain. So when you reach, so you're thinking, what do I mean by that? When you reach the length or the width of your project that you need, when you do multiples of 3, add an additional 3 on there to maintain that length. So for example, if you wanted to do something that had a width of 12 inches, you're going to chain in multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, till you get to your 12 inches, and then add yet another 3. So you want 3 extra chains after you reached your length, and I'll show you why in a moment. So for this tutorial, I'm going to start off by doing an initial chain row of 21 stitches. 2, 20, and 21. Okay, so I have something that looks like this, and keep in mind that 3 of these stitches are not going to count towards my length. They're going to count towards turning my work up so that I can work across the row. So essentially, I'm going to have 18 stitches I'm working into. Now, for this particular stitch pattern, that chain 3 isn't really going to count as a stitch. Again, it's just used to kind of get us to turn and give us some height. So we're going to start off by creating our first X stitch or cross stitch. So actually what we want to do now is find the 6th chain from your hook. So remember, you never count the loop that's on the hook. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now into this 6th chain, what we're going to do is we're going to place a triple crochet. Okay, so you're going to yarn over the hook twice. Okay, so in a double crochet, you'd yarn over once. In a triple, you yarn over twice. Once you've done that, you insert your hook into that stitch, and you're going to pull up a loop. You now have 4 loops on your hook. And by the way, if you're really unfamiliar, I'm taking you through this slowly, but I also do have a tutorial on this stitch in my Crochet Basics playlist. So I'll put a link for that in the description box down below as well. Once you have 4 loops on your hook, what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 only. You'll have 3 loops left. Then you yarn over, pull through the next 2. And then you're going to yarn over and pull through the final 2. Okay, so you have something that looks like this. Right now it's looking like a triangle. Okay, it's going to look like an X in a moment. And then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1. Okay, And now you want to go back to the stitch you just worked out of and count back 2. So we have 1 and 2. And what we're going to do is into this stitch, we're going to place another triple crochet. Now it's going to feel a little awkward at the beginning. You're going to yarn over twice. Okay, so what we're going to do now is you're actually going to place, so you're going to move this triple crochet out of the way and insert your hook into that second stitch from that stitch, and you're going to place a triple crochet here just like before. So you pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Okay, so now when we go back to this, it's going to feel all jimbled and like, oh, this feels weird. Okay, so this first one is, you're going to find like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? But if you just remember that your chain 3 is on this side and these 2, this is supposed to be crossed. And when you pull it like that, this is why that chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch. It's just there to anchor everything. There you can see your first X stitch, okay, just like that. So now we're going to go on to create more X's. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit easier. So you're going to yarn over twice, 1, 2, and now what we want to do is we want to skip the next 2 stitches. So that one's been worked into, so we have 1, 2, and into the third stitch, we're going to triple crochet. And by the way, coming up shortly in future, I do have a project coming up that's using this X's and O stitch. And sometimes I do it using double crochets instead of triples. So you'll see how I use this stitch pattern in a project. It's going to be really, really cool. So stay tuned for that. And if you are watching this and I've already released it, chances are I will put a link to that project in the description box down below here, okay? So once I've done the triple, sorry, I was talking, guys, you do chain 1, and then you yarn over twice again, and we're gonna go back 2 stitches. So remember, we have this stitch, and we go back 1, 2, and we're gonna go back and work into this stitch. So you're just gonna push this behind here. Gets a bit awkward. So you just go in from behind, insert your hook, and then you proceed to create the triple crochet. And the reason why we do a chain 1 is so that it creates that space. So see how when you stretch it out now, it naturally crosses where it's supposed to go. So that chain 1 actually helps to create the top space, and the skip chain at the bottom gives us the space for the X. So people will say that, you know, the spacing in between the X's, that's the O. So you have X, O, X, O. Now, I am going to show you a kind of a sneaky thing that I sometimes do when I'm working this X stitch. And that is, instead of working the second triple behind, I just do it in front because I find it a lot easier. So I'll show you what I mean. So you're going to do the same thing as before, yarn over twice, okay? Now, count 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. So we're skipping the first 2 into the third. You do your triple crochet. Okay, so you pull through, and pull through. You chain 1. And now instead of trying to fiddle and go in through the back, I actually go in through the front. So I'll yarn over twice. I'll go back 1, 2 stitches, and what I do is I just kind of come in from behind that stitch there. That way I don't have to fiddle with this post here. And I just insert into that chain there, and I pull up a loop, and I triple crochet as usual. Okay, so you see, it still gives you that X look. What is different is that you see how these front ones are leaning to the right? This front one is leaning to the left because I went in from behind. Oh, sorry, I went in front. It does, like from far away, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference if you had these side by side, but that's my little trick. You can either go in from the back like I did the first 2 or in the front. From here on out, I am always going to go in through the front just because that's my preference. But I know sometimes you will see this stitch done, and I just wanted to make sure to give you guys all of the information. It can be done either way. Okay, so we'll do that again. Yarn over twice. And this has been worked, so you count 1, 2, and 3. Insert your hook. And now you have 1, 2, and 3 times you pull through. You're going to chain 1. And now I'm going to count 1 and 2. Whoops, I'm going to yarn over twice again. And now I'm just going to kind of sneak in from the I'm going in from the front, but still coming in from behind there, if that makes sense. And triple crochet. This first row is always gonna feel wonky because you're dealing with chains all over the place. Sometimes, depending on the project, some people will do a row of single or double crochet straight across first to create a little bit of sustenance there. That's totally up to you. Okay. And so we're going to do that all the way to the end, and I'm going to do a couple more, and when you come to the end, I'm going to meet up with you here. Okay, so I've done this last X, and guess what? I have 3 stitches left, so I'm going to do the same thing. Skip the next 2 and into the third, yarn over twice. I'm going to place a triple crochet, and whoops, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to chain 1. Okay, and when you chain 1, we're going to go back into the second stitch from the last worked stitch, 1 and 2, but we're going to do something a little bit different. So you're going to yarn over twice, and you're going to start the treble crochet or the triple as usual. You pull through 2 and then pull through the next 2, but don't resolve this stitch. We need to create a post at the edge of our work. So see how we have that chain 3 here? That's just designed to give our work a straight edge. So we're going to do that here just before we close off this last stitch here. So what you're going to do is you're going to yarn over twice again and insert your hook into that last stitch that's already been worked. And you're going to pull up a loop, and you're going to pull through 2 and pull through 2. And now you've got 3 loops left on your hook, and now you will yarn over and pull through all of those. What that does is it brings this cross post together with this one, so it still counts as 1 stitch. Okay, so that completes row number 1. And you can see that each side has a straight edge. Again, this is the first row. We're working with the chain. It's going to look a little wonky, but see how really lacy this stitch is? It's very open. And like I said, some people like to do this with a double crochet stitch, which actually I prefer myself, but a lot of people will do this with the triple crochet. So let's go on to row number 2. And this is how you would work all subsequent rows. It'll be a little easier because we now have our stitches formed. So as always, you begin by chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3. And you don't want them to be tight. You want them to be fairly loose so that gives us the height that we need. And then you're going to turn your work. So now you can see where our X's are and where our chain spaces are. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to skip these 2 stitches, so the first one in the chain, so that's it right there, and we're going to triple crochet into that stitch. Pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And then you're going to chain 1, same as before. You backtrack now, and now it's a little easier to see. There's 1 stitch, and then you backtrack to the top of that X. So basically all the X's will sit on top of each other. So really easy to see. So again, we yarn over twice. Now I'm going to do what I like to do, which is go in front and then behind this stitch right there like that. Okay. And then I'm going to triple crochet. Sometimes you just have to hold it a little bit, 2 times and 3 times. Okay. So now I would like to take my hook out so you can see. Okay, so that X is on top of this X. Looks a little funny because remember the previous X, we had done it in front instead of behind. So let's do a few more. You really don't get the true effect until you see a few of these rows being done. So triple, so you're gonna yarn over twice, okay? Skip the next 2 stitches and into that third, you will triple crochet. You're gonna chain 1 and then yarn over twice and now go back into the right side of the previous X or go back 2 stitches, with whatever's easier for you to remember. Pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2, okay? And again, you just have to kind of stretch it up and turn it so you can really see the effect there. And let's do it again. Yarn over twice. Okay, skip the next 2 stitches, sorry. So see, that one's already been worked. We have 1, 2, that's a chain 1, and this is the third, so that's the right side of the X. Insert, triple crochet, chain 1. You also don't want that chain 1 to be too tight. Yarn over twice, and right there, we're gonna insert into that stitch the right side of our X. Oops. And we're gonna triple crochet. So this project, like you're really, you know, turning your project in your hands over and over a lot. So let's take that out there. So we've done 3 X's in row 2, and there you have it. So you have the X's on the bottom, X's on the top, and you can see these big gaps are the O's, okay? So, I mean, the cotton yarn, it probably doesn't look the best, but if you're working a beautiful acrylic yarn, again, I like this stitch actually a little bit better with double crochets because I find it sits nicer. But I'm gonna do the end of this row, I'll meet up with you here, and then I'm gonna work up a bunch of rows so that you can see the full effect. So go ahead and create the rest of your X's. I'm gonna meet you at the end when you've got 1 X left to talk you through that. Okay, so I now have 1 X remaining, okay? And so now I'm gonna do the same thing I did before, yarn over twice, and I'm gonna find the left stitch in that X, insert my hook, and triple crochet. Okay, now I'm gonna chain 1, and I'm gonna begin the crossed part here, just like I did before. So I'm gonna go back, find the right side, right stitch of the X, and I'm gonna pull through the first 2 and the second 2. Okay, then I'm gonna leave it there. Remember that chain 3? Well, that's just there to give us the side. Okay, and now I'm gonna go back into the same stitch that we worked at the very end here, and I'm gonna yarn over twice and work back into that same stitch there. So I pull up a loop. Now I'm gonna pull through 2 and pull through 2 until I have 3 loops left. And at this point, I yarn over and pull through all 3. So again, we're ending that row just like we ended row 1. So all of your rows will now begin and end the same way. Your rows will always start with a chain 3, but they'll end with a 2 stitches together technique. So the cross of the last stitch will be stitched together with the post at the end. So see that initial chain 3? It's just kind of designed to line up there. So if I put that down a little bit there like that, hopefully you can see that it creates that neat effect there. So I'm going to continue on and do a few more rows. And so there you go. So you can see kind of the X's there, just to give you the full effect of this stitch. So it is very, very lacy. That's why I was saying if you're going to use triple crochets, I would probably use like a little bit more of a bulkier yarn, and you'll just get a slightly more closed in texture, but I think it would look really, really cool. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a few more rows, and I'll be right back to show you a nice swatch. Okay guys, so I've completed 4 rows of the X's and O's stitch, so you can see a little bit more clearly now how the stitch comes through. And so you see all the X's sit on top of each other, and then all of the spaces are your O's. So there you have it, the X's and O's stitch. I hope you found it fairly doable. I know the triple crochets can be tricky, especially when we're crossing back and forth like that. So with anything new, remember, just take your time. You can always pause the video. This is a beautiful thing about videos. Pause and go back and watch it again. And the beautiful thing about YouTube is you can slow these videos down. So in the bottom section there's a little pinwheel, and it gives you the option to have a slow playback. So I hope if you have any further questions, please do feel free to leave them in the comment box down below, or you can always reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And if you decide to jump into a fabulous project using this stitch, please do tag me on Instagram and or Facebook at the Stitch Sessions. I'm dying to find out what you have decided to make with your X's and O's stitch. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today and checking out this stitch tutorial. I have more coming up for you in future. And of course, there will be another tutorial on this stitch in the round in future. So stay tuned for that, okay? And if you like these types of stitch tutorials, make sure to give me a thumbs up, and also let me know, of course, down below if you have any requests or questions, and I'd be happy to fulfill them. So in the meantime, thanks so much for joining me today on creating the X's and O's stitch. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Happy crocheting, take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye-bye.